Shalom לכולם. Hi everyone. This will be in English because we have two international guests. We're broadcasting from Sipur Pashut, an independent bookstore in Tzedek. And for the first time after, well, not really because there were two other times, but for the third time after a year of not being able to do this stuff in the store, we're here in the actual bookstore. And we have special guests, illustrators, and Mira, who runs the store. And we're super excited to have a guest from Paris. Correct me if I mispronounce your name, David Desrimais.
Perfect.
Okay, of Jean Boîte Edition, which means Jack in the Box, and Ilan Manouach, which despite his name sounding super Israeli, is a Greek-Belgian artist, which you'll meet. And we're here to celebrate his new books published by David, Peanuts, Minus Schulz. So without further ado, oh, by the way, all the books that we talk about, Nogu will put in the link so you can look them up on our website. And if you want to visit them, you're more than welcome to visit them at the store. They're here waiting. And okay, so now David will talk a little bit about the publishing house, and then we'll hear about the book from Ilan.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for the invitation. Very, very proud and happy to share this moment with you all. I'm going to set minute timing things before I start talking about the publishing house on your kind request, because it could sometimes I take too long, but I try to keep to the point. So here we go. I have a short presentation because it's a very visual publishing house, and I think it's more interesting to share with you the main ideas. So now the publishing house is called JBE Books, JBE from Jean Boîte Edition, which is definitely a tricky name in French. You said it before, it's like Jack in the Box. We intend to publish books for the digital age. I'll explain that later in the fields of art, humanities, and poetics with international artists and authors such as the brilliant Ilan Manouach, with which we are tonight, and with which we are so proud to release this Peanuts Minus Schulz book. And we intend to do it for worldwide distribution. So all the books are conceived here in Paris. The publishing house has been created by myself and my associate Mathieu Senac 10 years ago. It's going to be the 10th anniversary of the publishing house in 21. So I'll do a very short, quick, and straight to the point presentation of where we come from, where we go somehow, and mostly where we are right now. So this is our first book, The 9 Eyes of Google Street View. And it's a good illustration of what we wanted to do 10 years ago, which is we had this feeling, this very strong feeling that we were always looking at images and enjoying quality images and quality feelings online. And some of these genuine, true, good, strong feelings that we felt, it was very obvious to us that it had the power and the strength of our great readings, a great exhibition, a great walk through a museum. Sometimes you can see things through the screen and your vision of the world has changed. But these feelings had no representation in a space that is very dear to us, that is our bookshelves and our bookshops. So we started to think that maybe some of this project that only existed online, and especially images project, online images project, were meant to be maybe some kind of art books, at least books. And we started to do these books, to publish these books, and then to distribute these books. So the first one is a book by John Ruffman, which is called The 9 Eyes of Google Street View. By that time, John was a very unknown artist, but a very strong geek, traveling the world through the eyes of Google Street View. And inside this world, he was taking snapshots that were genuine photographs. So this book is a photograph book. a photography book, some kind of an art book, but only made of screenshots that John Ruffman did from Google Street View. And it was amazing to see how strong and how powerful this was as a book. So the year after, we went through another very interesting meme. It was the origins of this idea of memes. That's like these viral images spreading to the web. It was a Tumblr page called Kim Jong-il Looking at Things, and everything is in the title. It's definitely a series of images, genuine images from North Korean press agency of Kim Jong-il looking at things, just with a short caption. Here you have looking at a radish. And this was a phenomenon because it was one of the 3 most followed Tumblr ever. And by that time, you couldn't know, by the way. It was a very interesting thing to see that now we can see that someone is what we call influenced through the amount of people who's following it. But then 10 years ago, you didn't have this kind of information. You had to believe your own feelings that, oh, it's interesting, I want to follow that, but you didn't know how much. So it was interesting to know from the Tumblr people that this one was very popular, one of the most popular Tumblr ever. So the book is not only a book about a visual phenomenon and propaganda images and so on, it's also a book about the meme and the fact that the internet was such a place where everybody around the world gathered around the same themes and the same things to see. Here, the caption is looking at the chocolate. It's very straightforward, a very beautiful book. So we are very interested in this image world. Then we have made this one. It's a huge dictionary called Google Volume 1, and it's a very huge book, but very simple at the same time. It's the Oxford Dictionary with every word and definition replaced by the first answer in Google Image. So instead of the word and the answer, you have the first answer in Google Image. So it creates a brand new world only made of images. You can see that even page numbers were replaced by the first image when you ask for the page number in Google Image. And you have this 24,000 images representation of the world based on the words we use, but without the words, but only images. There was like a very strong phenomenon and a very iconic book that we really love to do. Let me check if I can do this better. Oh, yeah, it's better. You can see this profusion of things. It was very interesting. But then from this, the publishing house, which was only interested in images at that point after a few years, and after this book, came across the work of Kenneth Goldsmith. So this first idea that the world has changed, our relationship to images has changed, were very also challenged by another idea that the text, the literature, the poetry, everything that we consider as text or document is also a brand new world in the digital world. And literature as we know it has definitely changed and need to change its path through the digital world. And that's an idea that Kenneth Goldsmith, New York writer, artist, poet, and so many things really incarnate here. So with him, we done this book, which is called Theory. Theory is made of 500 short texts and poems or tweets, things like that, that are printed on 500 sheets and then assembled as a ream of paper. So there is no special binding except the binding of a ream of paper with 500 short texts. It's a nice object. I can see that Karen has the object in the bookshop. So those who are there could follow that. And it was a very strong and new idea and a new path for the publishing house to engage our forces and engage our attention in the very most contemporary world, not only through the images that come from the screen, but also from the text and how our relationship to text has changed. So Theory, basically, these are few excerpts of Theory that are always very pleasant to read. You can see this one of my favorite at that time. Need to remember that was seven years ago. It's still very accurate in many ways. Very the core of, it's already finished. Let me accelerate a lot. It opened a collection of books that we call uncreative writings. And uncreative writings is obviously something we plagiarized Kenneth Goldsmith, who wrote this beautiful uncreative writing essay explaining just what I roughly tried to say about the text and literature in the digital age. And uncreative writings is all made of the most amazing and beautiful project about text nowadays. This was the first one by beautiful Canadian artist Terek Beaulieu and poet. He took this novel by Andy Warhol, a novel. He digitalized every page and he removed manually every word of conversation that is in the book, except the punctuation marks and maybe some indications. So it's like 500 pages of punctuation marks that are definitely kind of the score of our conversations, but it's also a very strong and beautiful in our feeling poetic object, which how many times in our life can we have a book only made of punctuations? So that was beautiful. Another beautiful poet is Franck Lebovici. I will go fast on this, but he worked with the documents that already exist on the internet about love. It's called De l'Amour, but it's mostly in English. And it's another way to see our love and relationships in the age of the internet by only taking the documents and reassemble them, not creating, not writing new things, just working on the existing material. It's another beautiful one. I will go very fast on this one because this is nowadays a new release by the publishing house, but a new way to see the contemporary 15 years of leaks, the WikiLeaks, Hillary Clinton papers, everything, Panama Papers, and so on, have been researched by Demetria Glaze to find the references to food and to cooking. So what she has done is go back through these millions and tons of emails, not searching for journalistic things, but searching for food. And based on this, it's another way to crystallize and to see and to look at this very contemporary, beautiful tons and mass of data that we have, but in a very classical way, which is a cookbook. So every of these recipes are coming from leaks. And there was also the occasion of a photographic project by Emily Balz that you can see mixing the office culture, the technology, history of the last 15 years, and things like that. So the last one we need to talk about is this beautiful book, Peanuts Minus Schulz, again, in this uncreative writings collection. It's the first one that convokes the ideas, and I won't talk too much about this one because of course Ilan's there. Maybe I will just read for you the back cover that has been wrote by our dear friend Kenneth Goldsmith, not as a friend, but as a true admirer of Ilan's work. He says this very true thing. Without a doubt, Ilan Manouach is the most provocative, critical, and intelligent comic artist alive. Having previously produced a string of groundbreaking books which completely redefined the genre, Peanuts Minus Schulz is his most important work yet. Riding a razor's edge between the graphic novel, political science, and philosophy, Manoach with his deconstruction, descaling, and labor critique into a masterpiece that questions notions of authorship, originality, and authenticity in the 21st century. I'm very happy to read that because I feel everything there is so true and maybe such a great way to start our conversation with Ilan about this precise book. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Ilan?
Yes, Karen. I'm here.
Cool. All right. Introduce yourself, I guess.
Okay, so my name is Ilan. I've been working with comics since many years, like almost 20 years. Recently started a PhD about experimental comics and conceptual comics in specific. And And yes, I mean, all these methods of appropriation and using comics as a proto-material, as a language, has been very inspiring. The work of Kenneth has been very inspiring. The work of David with JBE has been very inspiring. And especially in comics, I think that there is a reason more to work like that, because comics is a sort of a language. Is already a sort of a signification system that you can retool every time with different goals and using different material from the beginning. So yes, I think, I mean, Karen, we had many discussions like that. I think that comics is I mean, what this book shows also, and we can describe with the book, but this is a good introduction, is that comics is a big industry, unlike what people usually think that comics is craftsmanship. I think more importantly, comics is an industrial form of expression, and where artist is just a cog in this machine, you know, but mostly it's a very big network of professionals of different skills, varieties, backgrounds, classes, milieu, nationalities now. I mean, comics industry is a very, very globalized thing, you know, like from the way prime matter comes, like paper, raw matter comes from different places. Books are printed in different parts of the world, are distributed digitally in multiple readerships, and then also recycled and you know, like, and it's a very globalized and financialized industry. So this book touches a bit about these aspects, on these aspects. So what is the book about? I'm going to very quickly. So Snoopy, everybody knows Snoopy. Everybody owns Snoopy somehow, even if it's you know, like a mug, like a coffee mug, or a poster or a T-shirt. You know, Snoopy's everywhere. And I was wondering, you know, how much do we owe him? You know, like we you know, like we inhabit him, we inhabit Snoopy and the different settings that Snoopy put forward, and Charles Schulz with through his work. And I was wondering to stretch the limit, how far can we go into inhabiting this thing? How far can we make it ours? And Snoopy is, I think it's an important word, because it has really stretched the limits of how comics can be successful. I mean, Charles Schulz might be one of the most successful artists in the 20th century, and one of the richest one. So it's not about comics anymore. It's really, again, the industry. It's not about comics. It's about all the derivatives that comes from Snoopy's. I mean, it's just like T-shirts and mugs, and, you know, merchandise of different sorts. And I think there was an opera, there are vinyls, there is so it has been a very popular, important brand that has been corporatized to the extreme. And but in the same time has been also the point where there is a very big tension in comics, because Charles Schulz himself described himself as a genius, was somebody that tried to never care about the commercial aspects of him, and said, no, even after 50 years of dedication, the only thing that matters for me is a comic strip, you know. And I think there is a very big tension there. From one side, huge economic interests, and the other side, like a kind of a utopian fiction of the artist as a genius with his trembling hand at 90 years old, trying to remake them the same characters like before. And I think this tension is not just in the highest echelons of comic success, but you can see it even in people we know each other, you know, like young artists. They always try to have this kind of, you know, like, craft is really the heart of the work. You know, if you make money, or if you become famous, or if you travel with this is just a byproduct. But craft is what you have to develop. Which totally goes against my own understanding of comics. I think it's the other way around. You know, you have to develop your brand, and then you have to learn the craft, or somebody else has to learn the craft for you. You know, so what happened? Actually, I digitized all the Snoopy strips, which I think this is also a very interesting part, which also highlights why comics is an industry. First edition, I mean, the big edition of the Peanuts complete series was released by Fantagraphics and designed by Cheap Kid. So Chipkid is a very acclaimed graphic designer, and the way he chose to lay out the books, which this is like 20 books, probably more, I mean 20 books, yes, with like 500 pages each, probably more than 20 books, and he decided to lay out them using a grid. Okay, so the layout of the first book and the layout of the last book is exactly the same. And what it is like 3 strips per page, exactly the same in the same spots. So no creative design whatsoever, no no zoomings, no isolated figures, like a very industrial. And this allowed me, because I found a torrent of Chipkid's layout, this allowed me with a very simple script to scrape all the strips and assign them an alphanumeric code in each one of them, which shows again that this book was possible. I mean, Peanuts Minus Schulz was possible because the original Peanuts books were industrially designed with no any design ambitions or creativity, let's say. Although this is debatable, but it was very easy to scrape all the material, assign an alphanumeric code, put them on a server, and then address micro worker platform. What is micro worker platform? For those that don't know, it started in 2007 with Amazon. So Amazon had a very important logistical problem. You know, their marketplace was full of duplicate products. So they had like 30 times of you know, I don't know, this mobile thing, you know, whatever, you know, they had to find a way to disambiguate or to like merge these duplicate listings, and there was no available any algorithm back then that could do that. So Jeff Bezos, 2007, in a very important conference, comes out that says, we invented the solution. You heard software as service, this is finished. Now we have human as service. And they applied a very big army of micro workers, Amazon mechanical Turks. Let's discuss later what is a mechanical Turk, to check the listings and then choose which one is the real one and which are the fake ones that have to be discarded later. So Amazon thought that it was a very interesting solution, and they generalized its use to other to third-party, you know, like contractors, other people that needed to apply the same labor force for their own solutions, their own problems. And now mostly is employed by universities to conduct peer review research, etc. So mechanical Turk, what is mechanical Turk? Mechanical Turk, this was, if I remember correctly, this is a chess device, which was a very big box with a chess, and people thought it was a mechanical chess player, right? And so they will play the first move, and then they were removed from the opponent, which is the machine somehow, the machine that was responding. But actually, there was a person hidden in the box that was moving the leverages from below, as if it was a human being, as if it was a machine player. So, mechanical Turk is somehow a human being that is simulating a machine. Okay, it's a very interesting concept because actually what we have, and this is actually the title of the talk I'm giving, is artificial intelligence. What is this? So artificial intelligence is a machine process that is replacing human work. But then you have a human that is replacing machine work that is supposed to replace human. Okay, this is artificial intelligence. So Mizonabim. So and micro workers are exactly this kind of a very strange step in the history of labor that will probably soon or not going to be automated, going to be redundant, and they are there to fill the gap for tasks that are still too complicated for machines to operate, to finish. These tasks are called HITS, human intelligence tasks. So usually you publish a campaign. You say, for example, can you sign up on my startup and then share on your Instagram page this page, for example. And then you assign a price that you can pay for this, and then you are looking for 500 or 1,000 positions to be filled. And then you can also geographically narrow down where do you want to address, who are you wanting to address. And Peanuts Minus Schulz was made like that. So I had a server, I have like 70,000 strips, and then I was looking for people to redraw the strips. Okay, so this reflects totally the industrial processes in comics making. You know, like comics is a broken down like a factory built process. You have people that are penciling, you have people that are linking, coloring, texting, translating, you know, binding. I mean, it's like a big belt of different professionals. And I wanted to somehow make my own belt with also much more loose criteria of what it means to respect a brand, or how can you make this brand totally weird. I'll stop here, and then we can start the discussion. I can show some images about the book. I have them digitized. And let me show you some, actually. I will start by a bag. I think this bag is quite interesting. How do I do that? Okay, let me share screen. So one of the most interesting things that was also one of the it's the moment when I started binding really with David, because I was a bit panicked. We discussed the book, then I had to do it, and when I started doing it, I had a huge bag. I was posting a specific strip in microworkers.com. Each strip had its own URL, and each URL was assigned to a different microworker. Okay, so there was no possible way that people would get other people's URLs. But the platform I started working on, they didn't have a way to work with with graphics in a way I was wanting to do, So they had to somehow make me a template for me that I can start working on the book. But the template had a bag. So in the beginning, the first week, this strip has been drawn by at least 50 different people, because all the different microworkers got the same URL, which is, I think it's a very, very funny. So actually what happens is it's Charlie Brown writing a letter to a friend, and then I was asking microworkers to write a postscriptum in this comic strip, like somehow put like a closing sentence in Charlie Brown's letter. So this one is, for example, P.S. Have a nice fall. And then I have other ones, for example. Hope you text me soon. I'm worried. This is from another person in another country writing another ending phrase. Lol. Sometimes the commitment was very, very basic. People thought, this is a task they had to do between like hundreds of different tasks, and it was pleasant for them, because I saw, like, when I posted the campaign, after half an hour, it was filled with like 700 people will immediately sign up to finish the task. Sometimes I would ask also much more complicated things. Like I say, don't draw anything, please describe in your own language what happens in each panel. And then you have this really weird comic, like this is a comic that you will find in the most experimental small comics publishers in Europe. Another ending. This is David's favorite strip. That you proposed in the beginning. So this is self-reflexivity in its best. So there's a microworker that is a smart ass and wants to make fun of me, so he puts his text. Do you think it's a decent copy? I hope so, my friend. I hope so. Totally relevant with what happens in the image, but then again, I think there is space also to have this kind of I wouldn't call it institutional critique, but not very far from what it is. Yeah, and then you have different styles. They are singing Despacito, right? Am I wrong? Yes. This will never happen in the original comic strip. And then we have like more Jackson Pollock thing, you know, like abstract expressionism techniques. This is a very interesting case also where micro workers decide to put themselves in the story and narrate a biographical moment. Totally relevant. There's a magic moment where Charlie Brown and Snoopy are together, like enjoying nature. And the guy says, I have an 87-year-old grandfather. He's still active until now. He keeps doing daily activities to the bank to do financial activities from the store. And I just got a smartphone from him about a week ago, though there was not any special day at that time. And people are flabbergasted to hear the story. You know, like it feels like a confidence. Then I have also very, very abstract moments as well. You know, like lights are turned off and we see only the eyes. This is a typical convention in comics representation. As you see, there are many different styles. This is a big book. We have the best of. We haven't published the whole thing that was produced, which are many, many thousands of strips, but we have like, I would say like 1,000 strips that for me, they were somehow the best.
Ilan, could I jump in this wonderful presentation? Because it feels like everything happens like in a magic way, like people are inventing things, which is in a way true. But you explained very clearly two different issues, the one that the power of Schulz and the comic as an industry. And on the other side, you explained very clearly what is micro-working and this digital labor moment we've been through. And the reunion of these two lead to Peanuts Minus Schulz. But listening to this and seeing the strips, of course, it's very, very clear to me that we miss one step we need to hear you about. It's your step. It's the poet, the artist that goes in the middle of this situation. And the fact that we have so many different ways of drawing and adding things is in fact linked to the fact that you wrote the protocol of things to ask to micro workers, and you wrote like a lot of protocols, which I think is one of the most beautiful parts of this project. So based on these two main things, Peanuts as the zenith, the most symbolic comic industry business, and the micro working, you go in the middle and you reunite everything by saying a series of actions that you expect from the micro workers. And in this series of action, you have one of the actions that you regularly change. So I loved the initial idea. First, when we talked about it, you said to me, okay, the actions will be redraw the strip, sign it with your own signature, and make a scan or digital version of it to send it back. And then we realized that, for example, the digital versions were too poor because, like, for example, people were taking pictures with a camera about the strips, and then we couldn't use them to have something clear and a good design for a book. So you changed that to another instruction that was a clean scan on a white background, so that we go. And in the middle of the instructions, you set one instruction that were regularly changed. Like, for example, as you explained, don't draw again, but describe everything you see in your own language. I think that's you that were asking for people to add themselves inside the strip. I know that you ask for communist versions of the strips and so many other ideas. I really want you to hear you about how, based on what you explained to us, you see or describe your own position of distributing not on the labor, but the artistic labor But the fact that you distribute the artistic labor is in itself a very strong artistic step.
I think, that's an important point. I think what is distributed here is different degrees of opacity and transparency. And to mention also, like to quote Kenneth, I think what happens is that, and I had the same problem with the paper. When I had to write the paper, which has to be published in an academic journal, I could not name that the strips were hosted in a server illegally, that then they were sent to people to redraw them, and then, so I try to defend some sort of procedural opacity for some things to not being totally clear. Other things would be very, very clear, and some things should be a bit in the dark. What happened here is that in order to produce some sort of let's say relief on the different ways to redraw Snoopy, I had somehow organized what I call the flash mob. So every campaign would have a different instruction in the middle that will make a subset of different results relevant with each other, same. And then we will distribute them in the book in a way as if they were spontaneously emerging. Okay, so for example, here, a person would again write what happens in each panel by following the image. Okay, and this person received this instruction along with the other 300 people. Okay, and later we would have possibly very different instructions. Let me find one. Yeah, this replace Snoopy with other famous characters, and Fred Flintstone and his friends apparently was a candidate. Fred Flintstone playing the piano. I think it's really an interesting setting. And here, for example, the setting will be, please translate the comic strip in your language. I guess this is Chinese. And then this is Annika. This is one of my favorite micro workers. Annika got the whole commission, following a book that was entirely drawn by Annika. And here the instruction was quite simple. Please insert yourself in the comic strip and try to comment on something. So Annika is appearing in the third panel, say, I wish I could join with you. Again, a translation in Spanish. So I think what I wanted somehow is to still be able to produce a variety of results with basic instructions that can make, it's like a recipe, I mean, you were speaking about recipes before. It's a bit this thing, how from a simple recipe you can create so many different tastes or different instantiations of a plate. This is exactly what happened with the book. So I think it's a very timely that the cookbook and Peanuts came a bit in the same time, because they're both about initial conditions that are very specific, and then results are totally imaginative.
By the cookbook, you mean the leaf?
Yes.
Oh. I want to jump in because it's an interesting question, David. Because what excites me most about this book, and also hearing you, I didn't really think about it, hearing about the chip kit design, which allowed this book. I was showing them your other works with Kenneth Goldsmith side by side, thinking about the relationship between poetic and literature practices, and then comics and really what it comes down to is it's all about language. And the book is just one in a chain of an entire discussion of the human race / plus machines, which is the development of communication and language. The books, we hold them very dear as like this final say. When the artist dies, he puts a stamp and it's a book and it's the final thing. And if you're inspired by it, you must quote it in a very specific way, and you can't, it's against the law to be inspired in other ways which you want to think of, and you have to do it always in a guerrilla fashion. What in this climate of today, where the biggest question is identity politics and who gets to tell which story and whose rights who has the copyright and who has the right of birth to tell which story. It's very it's kind of important to think as books as just the initiating a conversation of a long line of books which when you create a book, you're not plagiarizing somebody else's, you're not running over somebody else's body of work, you're just continuing a conversation and looking at Charles Schulz not only as a very great artist, but also as someone who has contributed to the language of comics. And in turn, what we can do as readers and as researchers of this work is continue develop this language. And then I think that what David was saying about the protocol is that this book and these kinds of projects allow us to stop at the surface of language, because we usually think of as language as just conveying something that the meaning lies underneath it, but we're stopping on the surface of it. And we start to break down not only what we're seeing and the components of comics and the differences, but also the protocols that lie beneath it. We start to question, like, why is this like all these mysteries of the protocol? We start thinking and enjoying it when we know how machines are reading it. Like you said, the human imitating the machine and vice versa. And post-humanist literature, I'm by no means a post-humanist scholar, but I am married to one. So I kind of like this idea that for the first time in history, because of AI and artificial intelligence, we know that we're not the only people, and because of scientific developments, and we know a lot more about animals and nature and trees, we know that we're not the only beings that have a conscience, that can enjoy art, that can read. Machines enjoy it too. And all these protocols are the thing that the machine would enjoy. And the layout of the Peanuts corpus, which allowed this book to be created, is like the most, probably for a machine, the most emotional information that you could know. Like, this book is machinable. it can be part of it. And so the emotion is not just in the story, it's also about the potential of what you can do to it and how you can join in. And I think it's and I think at that point it becomes poetry, because you see the power of language is not just the expressive part of it, but it's also to expand the universe and this particular world of Peanuts, to expand it beyond anything that the initial creator of it could have imagined. And it's really yeah, I think that part about the protocols underneath, we're starting to read a surface, which we're starting to treat books while we read them, treat the surface, the surface that used to be transparent of the mechanism of the book and how it was made. We start to enjoy that too, because there are parts bubbling to the surface of the differences between the strips that lead us there. And that can only happen. That can only happen when we have two books or two corpuses, Ilan Manouach and Charles Schulz, talking with each other, and we have like they're not original and a I don't know, copy of the original. They're more like a map and a code, and they're both maps and they're both codes, and they both feed off because there's the duplication. I don't know, I'm kind of maybe exaggerating, but anyway, those are my thoughts. Oh yeah. So do we want to ask if there are questions, and if not, we can continue.
Let's take some questions. Yes, if there are any, that would be great.
Let's see if there's some in the chat. I'm not sure. Do you have questions? I think show some more of your favorites, maybe from the book, or.
Yeah, I will share the PDF. Then let me find it.
Yeah, you're right, Karen. But also the interesting part is we definitely did not make this book for machines. I love this idea of this is disturbing for a machine, I think, to get the point of what's going on here. Also because it's a very physical object. We do love JBE. We do love to share online every content if it's not already available, for example. If you search for theory on Manox, you will find a PDF with the 500 pages. You will also find a PDF with the wrapping paper if you want to do it at home. It's like, I don't want to ruin your business, but that's the general idea of doing these books. For this one, it has to do with the physical shape of that big book, this heaviness, this everything. So that's also why it's disturbing for a machine. It's really conceived to be read inspired by the initial design that Ilan talked about, but with a lot more freedom of doing things as he's showing on screens, much more readable, I think, on the screens that we see.
Oh, definitely. I think part of the emotional experience of reading it is this kind of dissonance between, as comics lovers and as book lovers, the JBE books are excessively fun to hold. Like everything is super nice. The paper is nice, the weight is nice, and they're very also different from each other in the design. So it also, because the content is taken from digital realms, but we also have this physicality. I think it brings together at the same moment, you feel a very overpowering sense of nostalgia and love for the books, and this you have to kind of irk yourself that it feels familiar from a different mode of thinking, because it merges these two worlds. When I was thinking made for machines, I was just thinking of the notion of the original Peanuts book that for us, for each reader that picks up a book, there's something for everyone. So for a machine to pick up the original Designed by Chip Kidd book, the exciting thing, I guess, for a machine to figure out is, oh my gosh, I can totally duplicate this. Or also, it's the same way you read a book of prose and you think, wow, many of men have fought these things before me, which I once thought were only unique to me, and it kind of puts you in a greater context, which is overwhelming. But I think a part of what makes this work strong is that you're taking something that came from so many thousands of people, and you have it in this intimate format, and it's also like in the comics world, what we pride ourselves is that you get to meet the artist that made the book, because we go to all the festivals and it's always very connected to the person who made it. And here there's this kind of it's almost even more intimate because we don't know it, because it feels and the creator themselves don't know or haven't seen the finished product while they were making it, or all the other aspects of the making of the book, which I think makes it even more, it has a more, I don't know, even more exposing. I don't know if that's the right word.
I think here it's interesting because after 190 pages, we hear the following of the story from the person that has been offered a smartphone from his uncle. He says, I woke up last night biting my tongue. Although this is only a used smartphone, but this is very useful for me. I used to do that when I was a puppy. It really hurts because before I had to borrow my mom's smartphone for a while. Not effective, inconvenient, but not as bad as stepping on your ears. Now I can use a smartphone for anything, even to help me earn extra money online. Self-reflexivity again, because many of these strips have been drawn on, you know, they are logging in on the platform, the API from a mobile device, and somehow they would even, you know, like trace the original strip on their screen. With you know, with their hands, or with a how you say, with a device, and then they were going to use really the screen in order to fulfill the task. And I think it's yes, this is not how we do comics. You know, this is not how we learn to do comics in any school whatsoever. And these people have to find their own ways because they have to fill in this task in between other very boring or very repetitive tasks, so they find new ways and new techniques to draw. And I think this is, I don't want to romanticize this, but you know, there's also some sort of invention there that needs to be described as well.
True.
And let me interrupt and say, I find a lot of human spirit in there, and so many infantile images. It's gorgeous. It's so funny. And there were some sketches that even looked like something from the Shoah.
Wow, please stop.
I'm sorry.
Tasteless.
But then again, I like the person who actually wrote down Schulz over there because it was part of the strip. So
right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
I think Schulz, I heard this story about Schulz that he had just, he built himself like a small stage. I heard it from my teacher at art school, that he had a small stage which he built, and he would, when he needed ideas for a story, he would just watch the stage for things to happen. And I think that there's something, I mean, what I find really beautiful is that he waited for people to enter that stage, but when he was talking about it, he meant his characters. But it's also other people who are engaging with this work, and just the entire world can be. I mean, this is basically for me, it's a project about the language of comics. So it's not even that, it's even beyond that. It's about just what comics consists of, how can you play around with it, how is it a basis for playing, for allowing self-reflexivity in a very straightforward and direct, and the most direct way, because you just have to appear and you're there. So I just think it's a beautiful extension.
This is also, I think this strip also shows how different levels of information can be mixed, because I asked him, for example, in one of the instructions, like, please draw the strip as best as you can do, or to the best of your capacities, and make it raining, and point 3, it's raining everywhere. And I asked him to add rain in the strips, and then there's Snoopy running everywhere saying it's raining everywhere, it's raining everywhere, it's raining everywhere. So I think it's beautiful that, you know, like, and this is a very disciplinary thing, because, you know, you don't have much headroom to discuss with micro workers. So they don't have much chance. If they don't do it correctly, they would have spent like 10 minutes or half an hour with no money whatsoever, and you can just refuse it by saying, this is not what I asked. So the person tried to maximize their chances to get the script accepted by drawing rain and by saying people it's raining everywhere, you know, so there's rain everywhere in the text, in the image, so there is no chance that you will miss this task. I mean, this is also a beautiful thing, and this is where labor and the precarity of the art worker, even if those people are not considered art workers, it's a very important ingredient in this book, you know, like, and we don't forget that every art book, every artwork comes as a disciplinary thing. It tells you what to do, it tells you not what to not do, it prohibits, it encourages things, and this is what's happening with this project also, in a very, very actually very, very very weird way, because you don't have, they are not syndicated. So this platform is put for people that give jobs, not for people that need jobs. So you can if you are just a bastard, you can just decide to let people work, they do the work, you take the work and you don't pay anybody, and it's okay. This is okay for the platform, you know. So I think this is also an important way to start looking at the comics industry from the lenses of exploitation. This is not what happened in this book, but still, I think it's an important reminder.
And in all of these books, I think it's also I was showing them all of your books, and also the bigger productions that Kenneth made. The physicality of the book also is a constant reminder. It doubles as it draws us into the book, and we want to hold it closer and becomes more valuable to us, and also plays on our on us emotionally, because we're used to the feeling of books when we hold them, but also it serves as like a warning sign that if we don't pay attention to what it took to make a book and to make giant, especially the giant ones, which cost a lot to ship over. We're in Israel, so we feel the shipping prices are really taxing on us, and it also filters out what we can afford and not afford to read, and it doubles and echoes that we are dependent on these industries, and the cheaper they are, it means that the workforce doing them is also paid peanuts, the title of the book, but also it gives us more material to read, which makes us more liberal, which brings us closer to these ideas. But again, it's like it's this like snake that.
Keren, we are 45 minutes flight away. I mean, this is the truth. From Athens to Tel Aviv is like a very short flight.
Oh, but you're I'm speaking of, yeah, I'm speaking of Paris. Actually, it's peanuts, so I'm mostly speaking about the comics from the States, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so it's 9 o'clock. Do we have questions from the audience? Okay. All right, so Noga, what?
I have one question for David.
Oh yeah, you're in Paris?
Yes, so I want to ask David, is there's a physical store somewhere in Paris?
Oh, a store for the publishing house? No, but bookshops are physical stores. As much as we can, all of them, but definitely all of the nice, good bookshops that we like to go in, share our books. But we don't have a shop ourselves. It's also interesting to do these very contemporary, strange books coming from nowhere, and to do this in a very classical way. It's a classical way of producing them, of working with the authors considered as authors, and to have this very classical distribution through the bookstores. What is a little bit special with JBE is that we try to replicate this on different countries. So we have distribution on other countries, in Europe, in the US, in Latin America, and so on. And we try also to get these books to an audience who don't wait for them, which is the beauty of a bookshop. When you get in, you don't know what you will get. So as much as we can, the books sold in the bookshops. We sell a little bit online on our website, but anyone who's coming on our website doesn't come by surprise, you know, is coming for a very specific reason, whatever it is. So it's very different, and it's very two parallel ways. And it's also why, as much as we can, everything is also available online, because it's another stream, a very parallel stream from the business side, with, again, a new audience, which is so interesting to read. If you go back to the Kim Jong-il looking at things, or the 9 Eyes of Google Street View, and you hit this online, you will find every pictures and a lot more than you have in the books. Online, it's still there. We don't ask for like, oh, we do a book, so you delete the pictures, now it's only in the book. Never. So it's always a search for being there. Sometimes it's a surprise, like in a bookshop for anybody's coming in the bookshop. Sometimes you go there on purpose, like on our website, and sometimes it's just available everywhere. It's a little bit a long answer for a very simple question, but no, we don't have a bookshop in Paris on ourselves.
Thank you for the answer.
Naga put all the JBE books that we have in the chat for people who want to see them, to buy them here in Tel Aviv. And they're here in the store for you to come and look at them. We actually currently sold out of the Peanuts Minus Schulz, but I'm gonna order more soon. So you can pre-order if you want. That's it. So this talk will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and we hope to meet you in physical spaces soon. Good health.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen.
Conversation.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone.